In East Palestine, Ohio, on February 3rd, there was a train derailleur. And what made this one bad is there were 38 rail cars that derailed and an additional 12 cars that were damaged. And of those, 20 of those cars were carrying hazardous materials.
Heard about this.
So it's not just that, you know, like in 2014, we had a big train derailleur. We were talking about that a little bit earlier in Ohio, and it was a freight train of carrying corn. I mean, so there was corn all over the place. Okay, no big deal. No, these ones were carrying hazardous chemicals, including vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, ethyl hexyl acrylate, ethylene glycol monobutyl ethers. Were all released into the air or spilled. Most of these things are actually a gas. However, they're put under pressure and then liquefied in these tank cars. So just to give you an idea a little bit of what we're talking about, there was a total of 174,000 gallons of various chemicals and gases that were spilled.
That's it?
That were
That's
lost.
all just a minor spill?
Yep. There's up to an additional 174,000 gallons that haven't been fully accounted for yet. So those are ones where, okay, some has leaked out of the tanks, but they're not sure how much. This was as of, you know, when this data was compiled. Okay, now 5 of the freight cars were carrying vinyl chloride.
That's the one we heard about.
Yeah, and that's the one that caused the big problem, because vinyl chloride, in case people don't know, it's what's used to make PVC. You know, those plastic pipes that are everywhere. Well, it starts off as a plastic or a liquid monomer. Well, it's a gas. It goes in through a chemical process, and that's what ends up creating the PVC. Well, it's very combustible. It's explosive, actually. If it mixes with just air in an uncontrolled fashion, it can create explosive gases, which could explode. So there was a fear of it having an uncontrolled explosion. So they decided to release it all and burn it. 129,000 gallons of this stuff was released.
I'm not a civil engineer, but there has to be a better way of disposing of a toxic spill than burning it into the atmosphere and letting it float across with the wind flow.
Man, you would think.
Who was the idiot in our government that made that call?
I'm not sure who the actual person was, but well, it had the backing of our, you know, fear-filled leader, Governor DeWine. But anyway, in addition to all of those liquids, there were 5 hopper cars that were just filled with solid, either polyethylene or polyvinyl. So basically, they were hopper cars full of plastic, and those were all burned. So I don't know if anyone's you ever burned plastic?
Yeah, it doesn't take much. It's like a little piece of plastic, and you smell it for the rest of the day.
And it makes this really dense, thick smoke, and it's poisonous.
Now imagine that times a tanker car times how many tanker cars?
Well, there was 20 total, and I don't know how many were actually burned total. But so anyway, it looked like this. Here, let me blow that up. That's not a nuclear explosion.
Unfreaking believable.
That's, you know, one of the pictures that was taken, and that was the result of burning the vinyl chloride. So here's some interesting statistics for you. So there were 5 tank cars carrying up to 129,000 gallons of vinyl chloride. It's a colorless man-made gas used to make polyvinyl chloride, commonly referred to as PVC. The gas is linked to an increased risk of a rare form of liver cancer known as hepatic angiosarcoma. That type of cancer accounts for only 2% of liver tumors and is exceptionally deadly. The average life expectancy for those who are diagnosed with this is 10 months. So, this gas can cause that. It's also linked to primary liver cancer, brain and lung cancers, lymphoma, and leukemia. The gas can be consumed by humans, or, you know, enter your body through inhalation, and if a water supply becomes contaminated with the substance, the gas can also make its way into homes that use the water, and for showering, cooking, or laundry.
So, can I interject something here?
Sure.
I saw a map with where East Palestine is, and I don't know if you have anything to verify this. It's on. It is right beside the Ohio River.
Yes.
That if you look at a blown up picture of all the rivers that flow into the Mississippi River and that basically feed the fertile crescent of
The Ohio River is one of the primary feeders
Yes.
of that. Yes.
This smells like sabotage again.
It really does, and this whole thing is just horrible. So, but anyway, so if it's released as a gas, it can break down in the air within a few days, forming other chemicals such as hydrochloric acid. And they have had now some acid rain fall in some of the local areas, formaldehyde and carbon dioxide, and it can also become highly explosive. So they decided to burn it. So you saw what that smoke was.
Yes.
You know, that just looks horrible. So here's the problem when you burn it. They've decided to release and burn the liquid, even though they knew that the burn would lead to the creation of phosgene and hydrogen chloride. Now, phosgene, in case you weren't aware of it, during World War I, you've heard of that one, right? The big problem with World War I was the trench warfare and all of the gas warfares. Phosgene gas was the #1 killer gas used in World War I.
Now, everybody's heard of mustard gas. Is it close to that, or is it something different?
It's very similar to that. It operates the same way. It causes pulmonary edema, and basically your lungs fill up with fluid and die.
And you suffocate or
You
drown.
suffocate.
Basically drown. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
It's a phosgene exposure is associated with significant morbidity and mortality. Hydrogen chloride can irritate the eyes, throat, skin, and nose. So it's an irritant. But there again, when you mix that together, it irritates all the surfaces, and then you get all the other stuff. So it's all bad. So that's just the one chemical that they decided to burn. There's other tank cars, 30,000 gallons of butyl acrylate. The entire load was spilled onto the ground. It's a combustible liquid that can cause problems through inhalation, skin absorption, ingestion, or skin and eye contact, causing eye, skin, and upper respiratory systems to be irritated. It could also cause dermatitis, experience difficulty breathing. If it's swallowed, medical attention is needed. A repeated exposure could cause permanent lung damage.
Wow.
Ethylene glycol monobutyl ether, otherwise known as 2-butoxyethanol, is a colorless liquid that can cause harm to the eye, skin, kidneys, and blood through exposure by inhalation, skin absorption, ingestion, and skin or eye contact. It's used as a solvent in paint strippers, things like that. In 2015, the EPA said that the compound has potential to cause serious or irreversible chronic health effects in humans, specifically liver toxicity and concerns for hematological effects, or effects with your blood.
Wow.
Let's see, what is this one here?
This sounds like the possibility, or the probability, I should say, of decades, if I could say that, of repercussions.
Oh, yeah,
Just like-
easily, yes. So there was one tank car that had ethylhexylene acrylate, 30,000 gallons of this stuff. An unknown amount was spilled. This compound's also used to make plastics, and it's a carcinogen, and also an explosive hazard. So it can cause cancer. Let's see. Then there was another tank car full of isobutylene, 25,000 gallons of it. Now, it was listed as not having any spilled, if you want to believe them. Then there's benzene. Now, benzene was not being actively carried, but there's two tank cars that had benzene residue in them, where they were empty when this thing was being transported, but they still had some liquid in there. So some benzene could have gotten out. So anyway, the company says it's finished recovering the liquids. So yeah, good news. They recovered it all that it collected.
Son, you're lying.
But they collected onto, how do they list it here? They'd finished recovering liquids that had collected onto nearby surface water. So it's already mixed with the watershed in the area. And air sampling continues. And on February 12th, so this is several days ago, the EPA said that it had not detected contaminants at levels of concern in and around the city, although residents might still smell odors, which...
Honestly, it's fake news. It's fake.
I don't believe it.
So if you can smell odors, that means it's
There's
still
still
there.
particles. Yep.
Yeah. So working with Norfolk Southern and the Columbiana County Emergency Management Agency, The EPA had screened the air inside about 290 homes as of the 13th and had said it had not detected vinyl chloride or hydrogen chloride, which could cause life-threatening respiratory issues, although up to 180 homes had yet to be screened. Now keep in mind, from what I've also read, the railroad company itself was conducting a lot of these tests, and the EPA was just going by those results.
What do you think they're going to do?
So there was particulate matter detected because of the fire, but the EPA said that it doesn't really, that it did not detect chemical contaminants of concern in the hours following. However, noxious odors have been largely dispersed, though they still remain near some streams, according to local reports. So there again, it's gotten into the water. Residents in the area and tens of miles away may smell odors coming from the site. This is because of the byproducts of the controlled burn. They have a low odor threshold, that they say. The agency said at the time, this means people may smell these contaminants at levels much lower than what is considered hazardous. However, OSHA, you know, the Occupational Safety Hazard Administration, the permissible exposure limit of most of these is 1 part per million, averaged over an 8-hour work shift.
Oh my.
So they consider 1 part per million as dangerous, but if you smell it, it's okay.
And what is the parts per million if you could smell it?
Well, they didn't list
say.
that,
But it's got to be more than 1 per million.
It's got to be. I would think.
Our senses aren't
Yeah, we're not
enough
that
to pick
good.
up a one
Right.
in a million.
Fish have been turning up dead in streams. Pets have died. Residents have reported experiencing symptoms associated with exposure to toxic chemicals. Many people fear the true scale of the environmental effects is yet to be identified.
I've heard rumors, unfounded, but people on all the crack books and Facebooks and whatever, dead cows, dead wildlife.
I've seen some of the dead wildlife. I've seen some dead chickens.
Fish. I mean,
I've seen dead
given
fish.
they can cut and paste something from another
Yep.
and do it. So these are anecdotal from people that supposedly, who knows?
Right.
But it's horrible, man.
Yeah, but okay, here's one example though. The butyl acrylate spill, it said that it had been stabilized, and the railway had says that they had 2 20 cubic yard containers of absorbents impacted by the butyl acrylate and petroleum, and they've been staged on site to remove it. So according to the railway company and everything, and then the EPA, of course, is like, yep, good to go.
Yep.
They put all this absorbent stuff out there, so, you know, think like, you know, cat litter, stuff like that. They sucked all this stuff up, so they got it all, they cleaned it all up. However, a memo from the Cincinnati city manager on February 10th said that low levels of the compound were being found in samples of the Ohio River outside of Cincinnati.
Down Cincinnati, which
Yeah.
is what?
The other side of the state.
250, 300 miles downriver?
Yep. And by the time the river, the watershed, the Ohio River, by the time it goes all the way by Cincinnati, that's right before it turns left and goes straight down into the other southern states.
Unreal.
So,
yeah, that is devastating.
Yep. So residents have been complaining of headaches and feeling sick since the derailment. There's already been a federal lawsuit filed by 2 Pennsylvania residents seeking to force Norfolk and Southern to set up health monitoring for residents in both states because it's right on the border of Pennsylvania, and to pay for related health care for those in a 30-mile radius. There's a total of 4 lawsuits so far that have been filed against the railway over the past week, accusing the company of negligence, and they're making these class action lawsuits. So the environmental impact on this is huge. Now, here's another picture I want to show you. So you see this one here.
Yep.
Okay. This is what it looks like
Hiroshima?
from the airplane.
That looks like Hiroshima.
I mean, that's just the cloud buildup, the smoke buildup shortly after all this was going on. This is before it all blew, you know, into the entire region east of Ohio into Pennsylvania. So, and here, let me make that bigger for everyone to see it. I mean, that just looks unreal, and it's crazy.
Is this another government agency that's carrying the water to cover up
Well, you know,
it's a situation for
the levels of incompetence of this has been huge. Governor DeWine has yet to call a state of emergency. Transportation, it should be. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, he stayed hush on the massive train derailment that occurred in Ohio this month as he celebrated the Biden administration's infrastructure investments on Monday.
But wasn't he in a car accident? He made a comment that he just got rear-ended.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. But anyway, his silence on this has not gone unnoticed. There's on both sides of the aisle, progressives and conservatives have been critical of him on this. Let's see, this one, he jokes about balloons while ignoring East Palestine, Ohio. Former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, a Democrat, tweeted alongside a video of Buttigieg poking fun at the Chinese spy balloon that was shot down last week.
So out of touch.
When the topic of racist highways or white construction crews comes up, Pete Buttigieg is an open book, former GOP congressional candidate David Giglio of California tweeted. But when an ecological disaster takes place in Ohio, he's MIA. Former Representative Maya Flores, a Texas Republican, asked on Monday, "Where's Pete Buttigieg? How will this Ohio train derailment affect our farmers, the nearby population, and our supply chain for Americans?" The Lever, an investigative news outlet, reported last Friday that despite the train derailment, Buttigieg and his department have not reinstated an Obama-era rail safety rule related to expanding better braking technologies that officials have said could help prevent future derailments. And when asked if this technology would have reduced the severity of this Ohio incident, Stephen Dittmeyer, a former senior official at the Federal Railroad Administration, said yes. So the government is asleep at the switch with this. Now,
Yes.
Norfolk and Southern has a lot of responsibility for this. But where's the government response? There again, this isn't like, Bubba spilled a 5-gallon container of gasoline, outside.
Yeah, it's not like they just... And also, you were telling me before we went live that this is not the only derailment we've had recently.
No, actually, interesting. In Delaware, Ohio, just a couple weeks ago, there was a Norfolk and Southern train that derailed as well. Now, this one is a small derailment. All the cars were empty and stuff. Right. There was one tanker car that was on there, but there was no spill or anything that we know of.
Right.
And also, I think it was either yesterday or today, another Norfolk and Southern train in Michigan, where there were 6 cars and one of those was carrying hazardous materials, derailed. So
and there was another one in Houston, Texas. I don't know if it was
I'm not sure if that was Norfolk and Southern or not. But I'm telling you.
What's the theme here, Craig? Is somebody deliberately attacking or picking out a way to get to us is to do something to our railways? It sure seems like it. Either that or we are grossly incompetent with the upkeep and management of our railways.
Well, I can't discount.
Or is it both?
I can't discount that being a possibility. So I would say it's both. But you have to wonder the amount of stuff is going on. Another thing I just remembered. Also, I think it was last week, there was a fuel tanker on the freeway on 23 heading toward Delaware that had an accident and burst into flames on 23.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Took out the lights and stuff. There's a gun store on 23 there by Orange Road. Most of you people living nationwide could care less about this, but right there on the highway, and the fire was hot enough it melted the lines and took out the traffic light. So
nice.
US 23 became a 4-way stop there for a while.
So I was listening to some. This kind of goes along with your railroad thing. I listened to a podcast that is covering this, and there has been, according to this dude, over 800 in the last year, over 800 occurrences of railroad inspectors finding purported sabotage or what do you want to call it? Anything from sabotage to terrorist type of attack attempts on railroads that they've caught. everything from connecting the rails with wires to, you know, deformation or damage to the tracks that in the attempt to derail. But over 800 instances in the last year that they've caught. It sure as heck sounds like this is something that is more than just an anomaly.
It really does. I mean, yeah, and we need to make a whole separate a separate show where we just talk about all this stuff and wrap it all together. But the really super short summary of this, if I were thinking about attacking this country, this is the type of stuff that I would be setting up.
Yep. It's covert, not overt.
Yeah, it's covert, and it causes a lot more trouble than what you think it does. I mean, in this case, that those people that live in that town. I mean, and let's face it. I don't know if for people that aren't familiar, it's a very rural town. It is not a wealthy town. I mean, most of the people that are there.
Mining? Is it a mining type town?
Well, it was. I don't even know, because most of the mining activity has been shut down now because, you know, current administration. And
hey, Steve K mentioned in our chat that there was another derailment in Detroit today.
Oh, okay.
Detroit. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, it's just, it really, really makes you wonder. And what is going on?
Yep.
And so it makes you wonder what's going on. It makes you wonder why our government seems to be, I keep going back to this. How are they so good at being so incompetent? I mean, all the time.
They've lost sight of what their charge is from the American public. Their charge is to, like you said, protect us from outside invasion and make our infrastructure suitable for interstate commerce. That's it.
Yeah.
But now they're concentrating on all this stuff. And let's be honest, once they get elected in office, from day 2, what are they focusing on? Getting reelected.
Yeah, well, getting reelected and getting the stupid agenda stuff passed.
Right.
And you know, they've lost their sight on the ball. Or is it even worse? Are they actively working to destroy the country? Because I can't discount that anymore.
Right, right.
I mean, at some point, you have to ask, is anybody that incompetent? I mean, even an idiot will make a right decision every once in a while by accident.
Right. But we just can't seem to put that together, can we?
No, we can't. It's just, it's sad and pathetic. So, I hope you've enjoyed this clip from the Craig's Gun Channel Random Shots program. The program airs Thursdays at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. On Random Shots, we discuss content from ranging anything from preparedness, survival, politics, firearms, basically anything that's 2A related, with sometimes some rabbit trails on things that aren't related at all. If you enjoy this type of programming, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're notified when we release new content. And if you like it, hit the like button and share us if you would as well. It helps the algorithm and helps the channel grow and helps get our message out. So I guess until next time, stay safe.